Hey, this is Sandy.
And Randy.
And we're here on AT Corner.
Being an athletic trainer comes with ups and downs, and we're here to showcase it all.
Join us as we share our world in sports medicine.
Welcome back to another episode of AT Corner. Today, we are talking about every athletic trainer's favorite thing, travel.
Favorite?
Sarcastically.
Sometimes favorite. Sometimes it's fun.
Yeah, it depends where you go, for sure.
We're not talking about fun stories today, though. We've got some travel horror stories.
But also some travel hacks as well.
That's true. But not all athletic trainers travel.
No, that's definitely not the case. Not all settings have to worry about traveling for extended times.
Yeah, I mean, the settings that I'm in, I split my time between community college and performing arts at a theme park, and I don't travel for either of those.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the same for industrial settings. So having to, work with a company or even the high school, really, a lot of your travel is mostly local. So that's not too bad.
I did a high school travel trip to Hawaii.
Oh, yes, that's right.
I got to travel twice out of state as a student, actually.
Not a lot of students get that chance.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Although we do have a story later today about a student who traveled out of the country.
Whoa, that's pretty cool. Those classmates were super jealous.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
So before we kick off the stories, I think we have another segment of things athletes have said.
Let's do it. This one's from Elizabeth L. She said, one of my players asked if she could get her butt pounded, meaning, can I Theragun her glutes? I almost said this to you yesterday because I read it and then it was like stuck in my head. So then when I asked you to get out the hypervolt, I was thinking this.
I feel like you have to stop this athlete and just be like, hold on, let's rephrase. Let's take this back.
You don't want anyone else in the room hearing that.
Please don't ever say that again.
She also said another player on a particularly cold morning said, I can jump so high, before face planting onto frozen sand.
Ouch.
What makes it better is they were both in the same week.
That's an interesting week for the athletic trainer.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into the travel stories. What we're here for.
Travel.
Okay, so Matt C. had a 30-hour travel day. And I think this is not very typical. I mean, I would say travel days are usually long.
Oh my goodness. When I heard this story and I was reading it, I was still just in disbelief of what they had to go through for this.
Wait, really fast, but I don't want you guys to think we're dumb. We know there are 24 hours in a day. We know that 30-hour travel day does not make sense, but it's 30 hours of travel. Did that make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay, good. I was reading it and I was like, as soon as I said it, I was like, wait.
But that also goes to show you the struggle that this group had to go through.
Do you want to read it?
Yeah, I'll read it. So Matt C. said they were going from Fort Wayne, Indiana to Portland, Maine. Snowstorm in Indiana, flights out of Fort Wayne canceled during shoot-around.
So, basketball.
Got a phone call from the GM saying flights out of Detroit if we can leave the practice facility in 15 minutes.
What a last minute.
That is just grab whatever you can, throw it in the bus, and let's go. Run onto the floor to tell coach. We fly around loading equipment and bags. Arrive in Detroit and run through TSA. That could be the worst part of travel is the security. Flight to Portland, Maine, canceled due to maintenance.
Of course.
Coaching staff gets on second direct flight to Portland, which leaves me and 14 players in Detroit for 6 hours.
Oh my goodness. What do you even do for 6 hours?
I don't know.
Especially if you didn't bring anything to do, because they had 15 minutes to get ready.
They just had to roll. Got a flight through Philly. Flight delayed another 6 hours.
What do you do for 12 hours?
So I was going to say, after whatever you did for 6 hours, what else are you going to do at this point?
You find some really good books.
Landed in Philly. All flights to East Coast canceled due to fog for night. Get a hotel. First flight at 7 a.m. has enough seats for all but 2 of us. Myself and one bench player agree to second flight that will put us in Portland at halftime of the game. First flight delayed 3 hours. People rebook. We all get on flight that arrived 2 hours before the game. Coaches met us in the lobby of the hotel with wings, and we hop on the bus to the arena for pregame shoot-around. Made for a 30-hour travel day.
Oh my goodness. Wings make it all better, right?
I mean, that is very nice that the coaches did take care of them.
This kind of reminds me of when we went to NATA in Louisiana.
Oh my goodness, I forgot about that.
And we got stuck on the plane because there was a storm and they wouldn't let us out.
And what's funny is you kind of saw it in the distance. You're like, oh, that's coming towards us.
Yeah, I don't know why. You know why? Because the, what's that thing called that attaches to the plane that lets you out?
What is that called?
That thing that they roll up. They couldn't get people out on the floor to roll it out to the plane. So therefore...
We couldn't go anywhere.
We couldn't go anywhere. We were just stuck in the plane. At least we were on the floor, though.
But you know what? And this might this might hint more to the weather stories that we'll have, or the weather episode that we'll have. But, we're from California, so we don't have a lot of changes in weather, but I've heard everywhere else in the country, the weather just changes like instantly. And that was a situation where the weather was fine when we got to the airport, and by the time we got on the plane, we're stuck in a storm.
Yeah. Yeah, really. Well, that's funny you brought up California too, because we're on the West Coast, so I always think of things on the West Coast, and the whole time when you were saying Portland, I was thinking Oregon, and I had to orient
yourself. Yeah.
Did he? I don't remember if he said that they won.
Oh yeah, they actually won by 30, I think, or it was a blowout of a score. I remember
and they kept saying "We just got here."
Oh yeah, when they were on the floor, that's what he was saying. They were like, "We just got here." That's how you get amped up.
Oh yeah. So this one's from Charlene, and it's so scary, actually.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
Have you read this one?
I have not.
Okay. So she said this happened in summer of 2015 while she was an observation student. Oh, actually, this is so interesting, an interesting point, because if you guys don't know, before you go into your program, you have to do observation hours. So then I think observation hours are great because you actually get to shadow an athletic trainer and figure out, do you actually want to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of gives you an idea of what the profession's about and what you have to do.
Yeah, so it's really interesting to me that this one's about traveling outside of the country, and she got to travel outside of the country as an observation student.
Wow, that's ahead of the curve right there.
I know. So she said, I worked as a team manager for the women's basketball team. NCAA allows sports to travel to a foreign country once every 4 years, and I was immensely fortunate enough to be invited to travel with the team to Italy, where the team would play 3 games against collegiate and professional teams.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. On the last day in Italy, we visited a winery. Drinking age there is 16, but due to this being a business trip, neither the players nor myself had a sip of alcohol during the trip, which I think is a good rule.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We did, however, purchase wine while we toured the winery. Players, coaches, staff, and even myself bought wine bottles that night to bring home. The next day, after a long 12-plus hour flight, we arrived at Tom Bradley International Terminal in LAX. Side note, I was born and raised in Mexico, so I was attempting to return to the U.S. with my green card and Mexican passport. I was the only one out of our 25-plus travel party that had a non-USA passport and was quote-unquote randomly selected for secondary inspection.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. I was taken to a side area where they made me unpack all my luggage as I declared what items I was bringing into the country. Being age 20 at the time, oof.
Oh no.
I wasn't supposed to have the bottle of wine which I had bought from the winery that last night in Italy, even though it was unopened. Thankfully, one of the assistant coaches noticed that I was being held back and waited around for me. That's nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I was being interrogated on whether or not I was aware of the legal drinking age in the U.S., and I assured the agents that the wine was a gift from my mother, which was true. 3 different agents continued to ask me questions and started talking about sending me to Tijuana with an order of deportation.
Oh my goodness.
I was afraid, crying, and kept telling the agents that I had nothing to do in Mexico because me and my family moved to the U.S. many years ago. Coach saw me from a distance and came to see what was going on. Thankfully, the 2 assistant coaches assured the agents that they knew me, that I was traveling with the team, that I was a good person, and that the wine was in fact meant to be a gift from my mother. One of the agents must have felt bad for me or sympathized with me because after a long talk with the coaches, the agent handed the bottle of wine to one of the coaches and made them promise they would hand it directly to my mother. The whole process must have taken at least 2 hours. When I got on the bus, my eyes were so red. I was crying. This was the scariest moment I've ever lived, I would say.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
1 year later, on Election Day, I became a citizen of the United States and exercised my right to vote.
Wow. That's a wild story. Mm-hmm. But I do have to say, it is important to note that one of the coaches did stay back.
That's super awesome.
And I think it just shows that, especially with groups that travel a lot, you become a family and you look out for each other when you're traveling.
Mm-hmm. When I traveled to Hawaii, I brought back starfruit, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I was really nervous that they weren't going to let me bring it. But it wasn't like wine or something, and I wasn't underage. And they didn't almost deport me.
Yeah, I think that has to be one of the scariest unknowns to deal with.
And especially like 2 hours of the whole process.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
Yeah. I'm glad that she's still here.
Oh, yeah.
So, speaking of more travel, so this next one is from Nicolette, who's already sent in a couple of audio stories, and we have a couple more from her that we're excited to use. And it's a mix of aquatic therapy and travel, so it's really tying together a bunch of our episodes, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, Nicolette, MVP.
And just a little background, she works with a Major League Soccer team, so this is when she was traveling for the B team. She wrote, "When I traveled for the B team for MLS team, we played a game in Sacramento, and the next day we had an aquatic therapy / pool session just to do a recovery day instead of practice. We talked about that in our aquatic therapy episode.
I was just thinking that. Haley, shout out to you.
So 20 players went down to the hotel pool, perfect place to do it, and there was a pool session. During the pool session, there was one part where they were doing relay races, where the athletes would go from the shallow end to the deep end and back to the shallow end and tag the teammate to do another round. I guess our strength and conditioning coach never asked if everybody could swim prior to doing the relay race.
Oh, no.
Because once a relay race started, we see one of our athletes start going to the other end, and as soon as he hit the deep section, you just see his hands up in the air.
Oh, no.
As we're sitting there looking. You'll soon find out that he is drowning and yelling help. The player that was right next to him, of course, scooped him up and took him to the side of the pool. And when we asked him, why couldn't you just tell us that you couldn't swim? He said that it's something you can easily pick up, and he didn't think it was that big of a deal. Clearly he was wrong, and he was drowning in the pool and trying to scream for help.
That is a big deal.
Of course, myself as the athletic trainer, I had to spend the rest of the day teaching him how to swim rather than his pool therapy. Which I guess is also pool therapy.
I was going to say, yeah, that is active recovery. He's moving his extremities.
Mm-hmm. And that's part of our job, injury prevention. So
exactly. Or death prevention.
Exactly. Lesson of the day, always ask athletes if they can swim before allowing them to relay race and chance it.
I think that is definitely a overlooked aspect when you think of aquatic therapy.
I think this is so funny because it just kind of brings the competition side of the athlete out, and it's just like, oh, we're doing a relay race. I don't care if I can't swim. I'm just going to go.
I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out when I'm in the water. All right, so I actually have some personal travel stories. There was this one time we were traveling, and we were coming back home, and, I checked in my med bag like I always do. And they're not the checkers at the terminal when you check in, they're not very gentle with your gear. So they usually just throw my bag onto the conveyor, which, it's fine. It's a pretty tough bag. But this time they threw it upside down. I didn't think anything of it. All right, whatever, that was messed up. But, as long as it gets on the plane, I don't care. So we land back at home, and I'm getting my bag, and I notice it feels cold. So, I'm feeling it, I'm like, it feels wet. What happened? So I opened up the kit. When they threw it upside down, my sailing cap fell off and sprayed within my entire kit. The inside of the kit was soaked with saline.
Hey, I'm glad that it was saline and not...
It could have been worse. I've heard horror stories about tough skin, and it just like explodes in their kit, and there's tough skin all over the place.
Tough skin is adhesive, spray adhesive.
And that would have been way worse.
Oh yeah, or iodine dyed everything.
Oh no, yeah, that would have been, but it would have been disinfected.
It would have been disinfected.
That is a positive.
What about the time that you called me to grab your textbook just to double check something for you when you were on
So
it was one of your first.
Yeah, I would say it's one of my first indoor trips that I traveled for. So when I say indoor, I mean indoor track and field, and we were in Colorado. So I finished up the treatments for the evening, and now it's just time for me to chill. Well, and this was probably maybe about like 9 p.m. Well, next thing you know, I get a knock at the door. Oh, well, this can't be good. So I open the door. I'm like, hey, what's up? And one of my athletes looks at me and is like, I think I have lice. And I was like, there's no way. So, I say, okay, come on, let's take a look. And, I glove up. I have my little tongue depressor to actually look. And then, I start parting her hair. And I don't see the bugs, but I see the eggs. And I'm just like, oh no. I'm like, yeah, it looks like lice. But at the time, I was like, I think it's lice, but I better double check because I haven't had this come across before.
I mean, I've never seen a louse or lice eggs in person.
Yeah, I call Sandra. I'm like, hey, can you grab my textbook and just double check something for me? And she took a look at it. It was definitely lice. So not once did I ever think that as a collegiate athletic trainer that I would have to deal with lice.
Oh, yeah. But then it's not only just lice within the team, but also, you're staying in a hotel, so you have to alert the hotel staff, and then you're traveling on the bus.
Oh,
you have to separate the kids, and then who's the kids staying with?
It was a disaster.
Yeah. There's a lot of things you have to think about on travel trips. Another scary thing that happened to someone when they were traveling.
Oh, yes.
Do you want to tell this one?
Yeah, I can. So this one was very interesting and definitely a unique situation.
Yeah, so Adrian sent this in to us on Instagram.
So he said, new job with a D1 baseball team that took a trip to Havana, Cuba to play one of the local professional teams. Now, just that is a big deal since it's been very recent since they've opened up for travel like this. While we were on this trip, Fidel Castro died. That's gotta be scary because you don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, there's a period of unknown. Like, how is the country gonna respond?
The first couple of days were nerve-wracking, wondering how the city and world would respond.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. The country went into a 9-day mourning period, which ended up working out because we had more free time to do tours and see the parade that was organized at the Che Guevara statue.
Well, that's cool. It's always cool when you get extra free time. Not in this situation because obviously that's a period of mourning, but it's cool when you go out. One of the highlights when you're traveling is getting to do extracurricular things.
Yeah, I was traveling with a small squad at the end of the track season, and we had tons of free time. We actually got a chance to go play laser tag.
Oh, cool.
Oh, man. Athletes just get competitive about everything, even laser tag.
So this next one was not submitted. I actually saw it and I remembered seeing it. So I was like, oh, I need to find this travel story that someone posted on Facebook because it is just the epitome of traveling with basically no help. So Meaghan BD, she posted another fun football travel story. My day yesterday doesn't hold a candle to the stories from our colleagues in Alaska, especially those of you who have shared your stories of trekking by bus and plane to Barrow, Alaska. But my trip yesterday was a first for me. We traveled to an island for a football game.
So I never would have thought of that, but that is true. Traveling within Alaska, and if there are any athletic trainers from Alaska that listen to this, I would love to know how you guys travel because a lot of places have to be reached by like plane.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't think we have Alaska on our list yet, right?
Oh, you might be right. So we may not have.
We right now, we checked our stats. We have 60% of the country listening to us, but I don't think Alaska's one of them.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah. But one day we will get Alaska, and please tell us. Or if you've traveled to Alaska, tell us more. So anyway, Meaghan said, my small school re-leagued last year, and we now have the high school from Catalina Island off the coast of Southern California in our league, and had to travel there. We had a 1-hour bus ride followed by an 1.5-hour ferry ride to the island. That's not it. Repeated inquiries to the head football coach and AD regarding the potential for water and ice at the field went unanswered. That's horrible. So, being the seasoned AT I am and knowing the weather off the coast is unpredictable, smart, we brought everything. We were promised a truck or two to help us get the gear to the field because it's a 1.3-mile walk up a hill.
Whoa.
Not steep,
that is
but
not
still
fun, yeah.
Up a hill. I've done that. Not a 1.3-mile hill, but definitely up a hill.
Yeah, I've had that struggle.
But we were told by text 30 minutes after arrival, oh, sorry, we couldn't help you with that. So we piled in the few cash-only taxis on the island and got the gear and some players onto the field while a few made the walk. What a warm-up.
This is all over the place.
Oh, and I can't forget that when the game ended, we had about 45 minutes to get the boys changed and back down to the ferry, because if you miss the last ferry, you're stuck there until the next morning. A couple of parents actually missed the boat. We did win, so the 16-hour day was worth it for the kids.
Of course, winning makes everything better.
Oh, yeah.
So wait, they were traveling to Catalina for the game?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy. Super.
And with no hospitality from the other team.
Apparently.
No connection. I've gone to other teams where they have zero hospitality. And it's just kind of like, hey, we're in the same family, guys.
Yeah. We're in the athletics family, help us, help you,
Yeah. I think something that people don't think about when you travel is, like, when we were in Hawaii, we had someone who broke his hand, and so we needed to get him to somewhere that he could get an x-ray. And I think that's something that we don't really think about because, I mean, this was high school. So it's not like it's not like we were traveling with our own team doc or like anything like that. Emergency action plans, they're things that we usually have like at our home field and home, all the venues that we have at home, but when you go on the road, are you creating an emergency action plan for all of those? So then when he broke his hand, we had to figure out, like, first of all, who's going to transport this kid? Because we're not going to call 911 for this. And second of all, where are we going to find a place open? Because we were having night practice, so it was super late. And then also a place that would take his insurance.
Ooh, that's always the hardest part.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's just a lot of logistics you have to think about before you travel, even if it's down the road. If you're traveling like an hour or two by bus, do you know what the local places to go, like urgent care?
Yeah, no, that's the tough part. I mean, if you're the one traveling, the host school should at least provide some of that information, but obviously they can't provide everything, so they should at least help accommodate the best they can.
So this next one is from Kelsey H, and this one kind of goes back on the like extracurriculars we get to do sometimes when you have a long trip and you have some extra time. You get to do some like team bonding, right? So she said, in college, I was on a preseason team trip. They her team begged me to go on the banana boat ride. Well, one of my athletes was talking crap to the driver. He started trying to whip us off. At one point, we bounced really hard and my ears suction cupped to her life jacket, ruptured my eardrum.
Oh, no.
And I got elbowed in the nose. The girls took care of me that night.
Oh, no. Poor thing. That's terrible.
I almost put this in our getting injured on the job episode, but I decided that it was too good to share and I didn't want to keep sitting on it.
I think that definitely counts as a travel story for sure.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I'm really excited to do the getting injured on the job stories because it just kind of, I don't mean it to be funny, but like It's so ironic when the person
It
who's
is.
taking care of everyone is now the person who's hurt.
Oh yeah, I have one that I'm sitting on for that one for you guys.
Well, and for this story too, like Kelsey, it's not like she just had a little bump or bruise. It was a freaking ruptured eardrum.
Well, let's not shy away from the elbowed in the nose.
Yeah.
One, that doesn't feel good. And there was probably some hemorrhaging going on.
Oh,
I feel
I'm sure. That is crazy. Do you have any more travel? Oh, you have the one about losing your table.
Yes, that's right. So I don't know if anyone's lost anything before, but...
I wish we had more of this. I want to know what you guys got confiscated. Maybe we'll put that in a Facebook group.
Ooh, that'd be a good one. So we were traveling for cross-country regionals, right? It's cross-country, so I really don't need a table. I really just bring it to work on treatments the night before or the day before.
It sure beats doing treatments on the bed.
Yeah, it bugs me. I don't like doing that.
Also, kind of sketch.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in that position.
So that's the only reason I bring the table for cross-country is for that. Whatever, we loaded up, they got on the plane. We get to our location. Well, the oversized luggage area is not open, and nothing's coming. And it's been a while. Everyone has their gear. The conveyor for that flight stopped. So I'm like, oh, this can't be good. So, we try and figure out what's going on. It turns out that giant table, which would be hard to misplace, went to a different location. Super. So I went through that whole process of like, okay, whatever. Well, we're at this hotel. If you guys get it, if you can ship it to the hotel. Turns out I got the table back at 4 a.m. the next day when I didn't need it anymore.
Oh, when you were done?
Oh, when I was done. So I set it up for meet day. Like, well, I finally got it. So we're using this table. But the time I needed it, I didn't have it.
Did you just do treatments on the bed?
Unfortunately, I had to.
Yeah, that kind of sucks.
Also, on another note, if there's anyone who works a lot of track and field out there, traveling with pole vault poles.
Oh.
That is always interesting.
Oversized, overweight.
9 times out of 10, the airline lost them, or it got shipped somewhere else, or it didn't make it on the plane. It happened way too often.
Let's go into some more tips, actually, from Scott.
Oh, yeah. So Scott's a good buddy of mine. He's an athletic trainer with...
USA Track and Field?
Yes, with USA Track and Field. So he has a lot of helpful travel trips. He has a lot of helpful travel tips.
And travel trips.
He does have a lot of trips.
So we sat down with him earlier this week, and he was not only able to give us a fun story. Actually, it's not that fun. Apparently, I just really like to call stories fun. A fun story. You can decide if it's fun or not. And on top of that, he gave us some tips that he uses because he travels out of the country pretty frequently with them.
Yeah, and I know I viewed them as very helpful, and I'm excited to see how I can incorporate some of this stuff.
So let's listen to Scott.
Thanks for having me, guys. I have a couple tips for traveling, and so this can be either for athletic trainers or the athletes. I think they're useful stuff to incorporate, to fight jet lag, to just feel better, focus on performance while traveling, etc. Something that I think is pretty big is that the first thing that I try and do when I travel, and I have especially if you're traveling over multiple time zones, especially like overseas and things. It can be tough to get on the same time zone and kind of assimilate to that time zone and get your sleep cycle moving that way. So a couple things that I really recommend to people and that I've found useful is once you arrive, if time allows, like day of and schedule allows, try and it's, I'm going to start off pretty woo-woo, but kind of, I try and push to do some grounding work, if you can help it, where ideally you go to a park and again, if you're traveling alone or if you travel with your team, maybe encourage your coaches to go to a park to do a shakeout or something rather than in the hotel. Encourage your athletes to take their shoes off and get some skin on some grass, some dirt. I think it's like, I know a lot of coaches aren't really big fans of like when you travel to beach meets or competitions, like in San Diego, for instance. A lot of coaches like don't want to take their athletes to the beach because they can get distracted, but I think if you can do it well and kind of treat your shakeout at the beach with some relaxation, like getting barefoot on the sand, feet in the water. I don't know how much is evidence-based, and it is a little bit woo-woo still, but I do think there's some value in grounding with the transfer of ions and things like that. And even if it's just this kind of connection to where you are, being present, being connected to this new place that you're at, and getting your feet in nature, I think is important and has some value. And with that, if you can pair it with sunlight in the daytime, like that's something big, especially if you know that you struggle with jet lag, or if you're going somewhere big enough, like a big enough shift that jet lag might be an issue. Getting sunlight during the day can make a big difference in getting your body to start to get used to that time zone. So like if you land, say, in the morning, but you're exhausted, and you stay in your hotel until you get tired and you go to sleep with the blackout blinds, and then you wake up in the middle of the night, like you're screwed, honestly.
Yeah.
And so like if you can get outside and expose yourself to sun, your body it has these natural processes, and it understands like, okay, sunlight means I need to be awake, because if I'm not, maybe there are predators out, etc. Like these instinctual things that keep us going. And so sunlight and grounding, I think, are really big, if you can afford it. And then as well, like things like supplementation come into play. If you arrive and you're exhausted, but like you need to make it another 6 hours until like an acceptable bedtime to kind of get regulated. Caffeine can be useful, as well as like if you arrive in the evening and you're not tired, melatonin and things can be useful, to kind of help get your body pharmacologically tied to those sleep cycles. And then again, just like being mindful of blue light and things like that. Staring at your phone when you're in bed, not tired, being on your laptop watching Netflix because it's 11 p.m. and you're not sleepy because you're on a weird time zone, like that's not going to help.
Yeah.
And which just like it affects your performance, it affects your just your overall well-being. And yeah, I think that's pretty valuable stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like that. I was even thinking, if I get a chance to travel with the kids, like that first day, pairing like maybe a progressive relaxation in the evenings to help get that, like, okay, it's time to relax, time to go to bed.
Totally. Yeah, I had my cross-country coach at one of my last schools did that when we arrived at the hotel that first night, like a progressive muscle relaxation, which I think you get in touch with the breath, you get a little meditation and mindfulness, and then you are getting just kind of reconnected with your body. And I think that's great stuff.
I was going to piggyback off the grounding thing and bring up mindfulness, but you already got to that.
Love it. Yeah. Something else too, like if you know you're going on a big flight, something that my brother told me was that once you are on the plane, if you wear a watch, just set the time on your watch to where the destination is going to be.
Nice.
And then while you're on the plane, you can at least be aware of like what time it is where you're going to land. So then if you feel like you want to take a nap, maybe time it, with whatever time it is over there that makes sense.
Nice.
And so if like you're like, man, I'm getting tired, but I know I'm going to land in the morning, I don't want to be exhausted when I get to my hotel. Like maybe I'll try and time this nap right now so that I'll have more energy throughout the day and I can make it into the evening before I go to bed. Like stuff like that can be super helpful as well.
Nice.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
I would say that's awesome. It's a good one.
Yeah, it was a good one. I was my brother told me that, and all these things are great in theory, but sometimes it's hard to you can't just like snap your finger and fall asleep or snap your finger and wake up, so it can be tough to balance anyway. But yeah, definitely some stuff that's helpful. And then again, like, you got to think the air quality in airplanes are so tough. Like it's just so dry. All this recycled dry air, it can really like dehydrate you. And I heard my boss now, he said he recommends that you drink at least like 1 cup of water for every hour that you're in the plane.
Oh.
Which can get to be a lot.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you're on a longer flight, but like 1 cup or one bottle, if it's just like at your average, I don't know, 12 or 16 ounce bottle, is a great way to kind of fight that off. So.
Oh, I wouldn't even thought of that. That's awesome. I like that idea.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point that you brought up too, because like I've heard about hydrating while you're flying, but that's really hard to just say like, oh, hydrate while you're flying. But if you remember like, oh, I'm going to set myself a goal of this much per hour, it's a little bit easier to remember to what along the way, like those steps.
Yeah, totally. And then another thing like on top of that is like I'm really big with like active movement and active like recovery when you are traveling. And so encouraging yourself and your athletes to, when you're at the airport on a big layover, you know, like walk around, go stretch your legs, go do some easy mobility in the corner. Like I know for myself, I have no ego, and so I don't care when people are looking at me funny, but I know that is an issue for some, but definitely like I notice a big difference when I'm like getting my steps in at the airport. Like I'll go and do some easy stretching, like behind some chairs, you know, and then just like, just consider like you just sat down for 4 hours, maybe don't go on the moving sidewalk and stand still, like go take some steps. That's like a big pet peeve of mine. It's hilarious watching people in airports stand and not move, and then go sit on a plane and not move, and like we're getting lazy, man.
Yeah. You know what they say, sitting's the new smoking.
Yeah.
It's just the easy route. I think it
Something
helps
else?
when the airport is big.
Yeah.
And you can go explore.
Totally. Yeah, when you're in one of like you go to Albuquerque for an indoor meet.
Oh yeah.
That place is so small.
That airport, man. That city.
Yeah, honestly. It's the food. The food gets me though. I love it.
They do have good food out there. For sure.
I love Albuquerque. But I also
Really?
haven't been as much as you guys have.
Yeah, we've been a lot.
Yeah, when you're there like every weekend in January, like gets a little old.
Yeah.
We actually, speaking of Albuquerque, we collect coasters from places we've been or like places our friends have been. They'll bring home souvenirs for us of coasters and like different places. Like, so we have this huge collection of coasters of where we've been. Of course, we have tons of Albuquerque coasters, and we have one actually sitting right next to us.
Yeah,
Nice.
what's funny is when I was at Fullerton, when we would do our trips and stuff, I'd always make a point to go, oh, I gotta go check out the gift shop. So the coaches started getting involved and like, hey, did you get your coaster yet? I'm like, yeah, I'm still looking.
I love it. It's too good. Something else that I think is pretty prevalent, and we had a speaker for an in-service that we had where I'm at now. He came and spoke on illness prevention in travel. And I think which is pretty relevant now, but something that like to consider, what he was saying is that when you're in the airplane, if you have the choice, it's been shown that the window seats are the least likely to get like exposure to infection.
Yes.
Because you're more secluded and you have like less people moving in and around your bubble.
Oh.
Because when you're in the aisle, you know, the stewardess is walking up and down, and the stewardess is exposed to everyone else. And then, you know, the guy 4 rows up is going to the bathroom and walking by you, and et cetera. So you're at a much higher risk when you're on the aisle. And so if you can shoot for it, go to the window. And then he encouraged as well, like taking your own disinfectant wipes, which I'm sure tons of people are doing now.
Oh yeah.
And wiping down everything, all the commonly touched areas, at least in your seat in your area. And especially the ones that are the smooth kind of shiny surfaces, I think he said were more likely to have germs kind of lingering on. So that was an interesting part. And then he also said too, dress warm because it's best to blast your air vent straight down at your mouth and nose to kind of create like some constant flow of air to keep other things away. And so you'll get cold when you do that. So dress warm, so that you can keep that going. And then again, obviously now I have your best face mask or double up. I don't think you can be too safe when you're in a metal box with a bunch of other people for sustained periods of time.
Oh, yeah.
I think I think you can afford to be extra careful.
Oh, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I like that, man. That's a good one.
Yeah, I've never thought about the air vent.
Yeah.
No, these are all very helpful. Like stuff I wouldn't even thought about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's always fun too. Like I think as athletic trainers, especially in the university or professional setting, like we all travel so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely like it's just part of the job, and I think we all get some fun stories, and I think if you ever get the chance to go overseas, it's pretty incredible. But at the same time, it can be interesting. I remember my first trip. I went over to Qatar for a track meet.
Mm-hmm.
First time off the continent. First time traveling overseas with this job, and I was still taking and finishing my master's degree at the same time. And I had a big group paper that was due like 2 days after I arrived, and I was there for about 4 days. And the time zone difference was like 9 hours, and I had to work with my group, and it was miserable. And so like I'm working my butt off doing treatments in the hotel, like 30-minute blocks, like back to back for like 2 or 3 hours, and then I'd get a break, and then 2 or 3 hours, and then I'd get a break. And I was exhausted, and then I had to stay up. And like with the time change, to be able to work with my classmates, I had to be up until it was like 11 p.m. to like 5 a.m. was when they were like able to grind out some stuff.
Oh my goodness.
And so like I'd take a nap once I was done working, and then I'd wake up and work with them. And then I'd be like, all right, guys, I cannot do anything else. I'm going to go power nap for 4 hours. And then I'll wake up and like try and finish this with you in the morning before like I have to work. And they're like, all right, dude, appreciate you. Like, dude, I was a zombie the next day.
Oh, I bet.
Sounds
And like
it.
yeah, it was crazy. Like first international trip, super swamped, super stressed with this school project, and just like, and it was so hot in Qatar.
That's what I heard.
But it was, yeah, I mean, it was still incredible. I mean, definitely it made a recipe for something you'll never forget. I think we all have those kind of crazy stories that things just time up, especially like as grad assistants and things where we're all working on school projects that are due at midnight. And, like
I was just going to say that just sounds like being in grad school. Having to work on the road, and you really worked on the road.
Yeah, it was awesome. Good times.
Nice. Well, that about wraps it up for our travel stories.
Yeah, and again, those tips I thought were awesome. I definitely shared his struggle with working on the road as a grad student. I'm sure everyone who's been a grad student knows the struggle of, I have to do this assignment, but I'm also on the road and don't feel like doing work. That is the worst place to do work, is on the road.
Well, if you want more travel tips and more travel stories, we're actually doing that for our next episode as well with Bill. Do you want to talk a little bit about Bill? And
Yeah, so Bill's a mentor of mine, and he's also worked with USA Track and Field, but he's also working a lot now with, I think it's USA Beach Volleyball. So he's definitely gotten a lot of international experience. So again,
he's been traveling internationally since 2006, and we were lucky enough to sit down with him and talk about his innovative, creative ways that he's gotten to get around some of the logistics of traveling, times that things have almost gotten confiscated, and kind of some of those things you have to think about when you're traveling internationally. And I know this is perfect timing because we're in COVID and we can't really travel that much.
So it allows more time to prepare.
Yeah. Well, also, like, if you're missing traveling, then you can tune in and pretend you're there.
Yeah,
Live vicariously through the stories.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. We learned a lot about what to do, especially what you have to think about when traveling internationally. So I thought it was a very valuable conversation, and we are very excited to share it with you guys.
And I know that all these things that we've said today and all the stories are going to like make you remember all of your stories. And we want to see your travel pictures. We think those would be super fun to reminisce on. So we'll probably put it in the episode thread like, hey, show us your travel pictures, something like that. And then, actually, if you're new and if you haven't joined the Facebook group, we have an AT Corner Community Facebook group that we're super excited about. It's a place for us to interact with our listeners to interact with us, and to interact with a bunch of other athletic trainers, athletic training students, people interested in sports medicine, some of our friends, some of our family, and just people who enjoy AT Corner.
Yeah, and we've been very impressed with the reaction we've gotten from people so far. A lot of people are getting engaged and posting on it, so please keep that going. We are really excited.
Share your funny stuff. We like the funny things. So if you aren't a member, there's only one membership question and then you're automatically approved. It's facebook.com/group/AT Corner Podcast, and it's also in the show notes or YouTube description below. I think we have an exciting announcement.
Yes, we do. We have some big news. A couple weeks ago, MedBridge reached out to us to be affiliates.
Mm-hmm. So what that means is, do you want to explain what MedBridge is first?
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with MedBridge, they're a continuing education service that provides educational videos, and not just for ATs, but also for PTs.
SLPs, OTs.
Yeah, so different health professions. They offer continuing education videos, and these videos are from big-time experts in whatever their field is. So they're very educational, they're good quality, but also MedBridge also has a format where you can provide home exercise programs to your patients. So it provides videos that your patients can look at when they're at home, so they're not just looking at pictures. Like, it's a very all-inclusive kind of software that I love MedBridge.
Yeah, Randy got to use it at his last place of employment, which was super cool that they provide that for him. And if you guys want it, MedBridge offered us a promo code to give to you guys that will give you $175 off.
That's a deal.
And on top of that, if you use our promo code, it also helps support the show.
Yeah.
Which we will always make this free for you guys. We're not setting up a Patreon or anything like that, so we don't want you guys to have to pay for anything. But if you did want a MedBridge subscription, and if you did use our code ATCorner, it will also be in the show notes below. That will also, some of that money will go to us.
I'm still nerding out that MedBridge reached out, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, so we're really excited about it. So speaking back to AT Corner news, some of our upcoming story episodes are going to be about working with other professionals, crazy mechanisms of injury, concussion, and hydration or cryotherapy. So if you guys have any stories that have to do with any of those things, we want them all. Especially like, I think that I didn't explain working with other professionals very well. This is going to be like, have any experiences with EMTs, paramedics?
I feel like there's definitely got to be a lot of those.
Yeah, it could be good or bad. We want all of it. Good, bad, everything. Working with PTs, which we do a lot.
Yeah.
Working with OTs, physicians, which we have to as athletic trainers.
Yes.
We have to work in collaboration with physicians, so I know you have those stories. Working with chiropractors. Do any of you guys work with speech-language pathologists?
I haven't done that in the past, so that'd be really interesting to see if anyone has.
Yeah, so we want to hear about your stories working with other healthcare professions. And then crazy mechanisms of injury. So this could be like someone falling down the stairs or someone standing up into a bar above their head and getting a concussion. Oops, I gave one away. Concussion stories.
Spoiler alert.
And hydration or cryotherapy stories.
So, what do you think? We good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for another episode of AT Corner. Thanks for helping us showcase athletic training behind the tape. Bye.